In this video, we're going to be discussing encryption. Here are some basic terminology in encryption. We'll start with cipher. Cipher means a mechanism used to scramble a plain text. So, to give you an example, with a cipher, and typically a cipher is in the form of an algorithm, a mathematical algorithm. So when you're given a text with a cipher, you can turn it into something entirely different from the original text. So scrambling here means making the text unreadable or making the text not understandable, and so on. Now the next one is encrypt or encipher. So these verbs actually mean the action of scrambling a plain text. So we talked about a cipher, and when using a cipher, this action of scrambling a plain text is called encrypting or enciphering. And then the opposite of encrypting and enciphering is deciphering and decrypting. So transforming the ciphertext, so in this case the scrambled text, back into its original plain text form, that's called deciphering or decrypting. So from our discussion here, we did our discussion without defining exactly what we mean by a plain text or a ciphertext. I think you pretty much picked up the meaning probably. So when we say a plain text, what we mean by that is an original text before encryption, and when we say a ciphertext, we mean a scrambled version of the plain text. So scrambling here simply means making a text impossible to understand when it comes to its meaning. So here in this slide, I'm going to explain what we just discussed pictorially. So this box with rounded corners, we use this to represent a cipher. Therefore, a text before encryption, we called it plain text. Text after encryption, we called it ciphertext. So you still remember that. And this action of turning plain text into the ciphertext was called encrypt or encipher. So that's no problem to understand. However, there is one missing ingredient here, which is encryption key. And you can see the role of the encryption key right here, because whenever you're using this same algorithm called cipher over and over again to encrypt this plain text into ciphertext, as long as you know what the algorithm is, and typically the cipher algorithm is publicly available, you should be able to figure out the plain text from the ciphertext very easily, because it's just the reverse engineering thing using that algorithm. So we need something in addition to the cipher algorithm to make the process of turning the ciphertext back into the plain text more difficult, and that is actually the role of this encryption key. Using the encryption key, which is actually kept as a secret, and the only person who knows this encryption key is the person who's encrypting the plain text, you can make it much more difficult to figure out the original plain text from the ciphertext here. So in this diagram below, you can see the reverse of encryption, which is decryption. So the activity is called decrypt, and in this case you're actually turning the ciphertext back into plain text. Again, in this case, the role of encryption key is very important, or the role of a key is very important. In this case, the key you use to decrypt the ciphertext back into the plain text, we call it decryption key. Now, here something you have to understand is that this encryption key and the decryption key, they don't really have to be always the same. They could be actually different. So depending on whether they are the same or different, that's one of the ways we categorize different types of ciphers.